Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Our topic for today's discussion is Transcendent Unity of Religions and Sophia Perennis, perennial philosophy being the science of which the notion of transcendent unity of religions is prevalent. And why are we discussing transcendent unity of religion? We are discussing this as one of the trends in religious pluralism. So before I carry on, I would like again to remind you that transcendent unity of religions is not a full-fledged religious pluralism, but in the context of our discussion, transcendent unity of religions being one of the trends in understanding or interpreting religious pluralism. As you can see in front of you here, in the slides, we have 4 books of Fridtjof Schwann. Who is this Fridtjof Schwann? Is the scholar, the mystic who championed the idea of transcendent unity of religion. All right, let's go to our next discussion. So what is transcendent unity of religions? Basically, transcendent unity of religion calls for unity of religions in an inward manner, and it tries to remove the prejudice towards differences of religions from the perspective of their outlooks. Yeah, and according to Fridtjof Schwann, that a Christian understood that God manifests himself uh, through each particular revelation, which means that every religion in this regard is revelation, and his impersonal character is projected in these different forms, these diverse forms. So as you know that in Christianity, at first it was the word, and Schwann interpreted that this word is in fact the single manifestation of the gods in different forms. Yeah. So it is also prevalent interpretations among some quarters of Christianity that the idea of Holy Ghost, which reflects the characteristics of the impersonal God, is also prevalent in other religions in different names. For example, Purusha in Hinduism, and Buddhi in Buddhism, and Al-Aqlu in Islamic mysticism. Yeah. So what these terms are trying to advocate here, according to Fridtjof Schwann, is the idea of impersonal God in different title or different nomenclature in the different religions, and therefore it justifies for the idea of God or divine beyond human comprehension, yeah, rational comprehension as well as ethical comprehension. As well as empirical comprehension. So what Schwann is trying to propagate this idea of transcendent unity of religion is actually the idea of unity of God at the heart of religion. And this idea of unity is not uh, physical, it is in fact metaphysical. I hope
Mr. Schumann.
You can listen to this.
Your first book was entitled Transcendent Unity of Religions. May I ask you how one should understand?
There's only one truth. This truth is obliged to manifest itself through different forms because these forms are possibilities. Different possibilities. It's like language. We have different languages, different races, different types. Satya Yoga, Vapara Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Kama Yoga. So mentality.
As a scholar and writer, how did you develop your ideas about, as in your book, the transcendent unity of religions?
It was a child. I read the Upanishads. I felt very Vedanta. My starting point is Advaita Vedanta. I know Hindus. So I discovered the basic truths of Advaita Vedanta, also in other religions, but in a more hidden way. Meister Eckhart, Christianity. So
would you say that sense of the unity of all religions is what marks your philosophy about anything else even now?
no, it's rather extrinsic. Unity of religions. I am rather interested in the one, como es que diga, seule religion sous-jacente, the one hidden religion, religio perennis. This interests me. The same truth hidden in all the forms.
All right. So as you can listen to what he said just now, yeah, he's talking about a higher philosophy of spiritualism, Eastern spiritualism, which is found in Hinduism, well articulated in Upanishads. The philosophy of Advaita, Vedanta, and is very much influenced by this philosophy in interpreting the idea of unity of religions in metaphysical sense. And he's not attracted to the idea of unity within diversity in the context of differences of religions, as we can see in front of our eyes, yeah, um, or tangible, differences that we can differentiate. But he's very much interested in the essence that bring all these differences together. All right. So in his video clip just now, he mentioned about religio perennial. What is religio perennial? Religio perennial, the concept of the religion that exists throughout the time. That religion that is not bound to a certain context, to a certain period, to a certain place. It's the religion that survived throughout the throughout the years, the ages, right? So, and the philosophy of the science that can capture this religion, according to him, is Sophia Perennis, or perennial philosophy. Why perennial philosophy? Because perennial philosophy is the philosophy that can appreciate esoteric wisdom. So esoteric wisdom is an internal wisdom, um, the intellect that lies uh, within human um, domain, within human intrinsic knowledge. Yeah? It is an intrinsic knowledge, as a matter of fact. And um, some scholars regarded the reason why Schwann developed perennial philosophies and why this perennial wisdom, perennial philosophy survived until today is because it was a response against the death of spiritualism in the West. So it was to reject the idea of desacralization. Yeah, as we have discussed earlier, that Western philosophy is very much embedded with materialism, with secularism, that rejected sacred influence towards the world. Yeah, so perennial philosophy is a response against this rejection. And Schwann and his school is trying to propagate perennial philosophy because he was trying to bring back the element and the important role of the sacred in religion. If you relate back with what we have discussed earlier during the first lecture on secular humanism, you will be able to see or to relate or to make sense of how this response against secular humanism has brought to the emergence of perennial philosophy. All right, another scholar who is very much associated to Fridtjof Schwann, uh, who seemed to echo Fridtjof Schwann is Said Hussein Nasr. And Said Hussein Nasr came from the Muslim part, make it more interesting for the school of Transcendent Unity of religion to get a place among the Muslims thinkers or philosophers or Sufis for that matter. So, it is quite interesting to know that, there is also another philosopher by the name of Aldous Huxley who propagate perennial philosophy as a philosophy that is able to acknowledge metaphysics. Well, it's quite interesting to learn that, at a certain point of human history, Western philosopher, there was a Western philosopher who manage to acknowledge the existence of metaphysics via philosophy, and Schwann came later on calling this philosophy as perennial philosophy, supporting Huxley of his proposal on this type of philosophy. And the followers of this perennial philosophy were actually many. So as you can see on the slides, Guénon, René Guénon, Ananda Karmaraswamy, Fridtjof Schwann, William C. Chittick, Anna Marie Schimmel, so on and so forth. And of course, Syed Hussein Nasr. We were about to discuss Syed Hussein Nasr. So why Syed Hussein Nasr is interesting? Uh, First, because he's a Muslim and he even though spiritualism is not something foreign in Islam, but Said Hussein Nasr also follow the path of perennial philosophy, and he um, he has coined a specific term for perennial philosophy to justify the importance of the sacred in science. Yeah, so he called it scientia sacra, or sacred science, or sacred knowledge. And um, if perennial philosophy is the philosophy that can explain metaphysics, now what about science? Scientia sacra. Scientia sacra is the science that allow or accept sacred element as scientific. This is interesting because in secular humanism, for example, um, there is no science of the sacred. Humans simply cannot know the sacred. It's beyond human comprehension, so it's not scientific. Whatever you know about the secret is not scientific because it cannot be measured. Human mind, human experience cannot attain an objective idea about the secret. But uh, Said Hussein Nasr proved that this otherwise. As a matter of fact, sacred science is the science that can help men to be able to understand the metaphysics the sacred world, and ultimately able to substantiate human understanding of God, of the transcendent. Yeah. So this is his book, and if Perennial philosophy talk about uh, the possibility of knowing metaphysics via perennial philosophy, Scientia Sacra is the roots of this metaphysics, the sacred science. So it's like an umbrella term for uh, the science that deal with metaphysics, which include perennial philosophy. All right. Um, and this is also the book written by Said Hossein Nasar. Yeah. And Said Hossein Nasar called Scientia Sacra as the science of the ultimate. Yeah. The science of the ultimate, the science of God. Let's listen to what Sean perhaps has to say about perennial philosophy.
It's been written that your perspective incorporates elements of Hinduism, the American Indians, and Islam.
Of course, yes.
So it's in that sense that the metaphysic is Hinduism,
Yes.
and the
Religion is Islam, and the framework is Islam, and a certain ecological balance. Syncretism is an error, but in pure esotericism, a certain syncretism is possible. Yes, yes. You see this in India. You see Sufi who imitate the Vajnani and so on. It's natural. Or in Africa, the Negro are Muslims and the Arabs imitate a little bit the Negro. Certain total because of the ambience.
So you see what?
metaphysics then is
Okay, we will listen a little bit more.
meanings.
Yes, the one behind the different expressions.
And how do we know that this metaphysical meaning is the truth?
Because we have the truth in ourselves. It's we know the truth because we are the truth, but only this knowledge is hidden by ice because of the fall of man. But the realized man has an eye in the heart. Chante Mata is so English. Eye of the heart, einer Tanten. And this is an infallible means of knowledge, eye of the heart.
What then is the meaning of religion?
Religion is an adaptation to a certain mentality to save everyone. With Plato, you cannot save everyone. But with a religion, you can save the last man. It's not necessary to be dead to be saved.
If we then have religion which saves us, why do we have need of metaphysics?
Because there are metaphysicians. A metaphysician can do nothing with religion. I can do nothing with religion alone. It doesn't interest me. It doesn't speak to me. I am drawn to God through metaphysical truth. Otherwise, I am not interested. Of course, I can do prayers. This I can do. But it's not the thing which tells me that I am on the right path.
All right, so that's about it. So indeed, it is interesting, isn't it? Aristotle, Plato, philosophers, the great philosophers cannot save you, but Philosophia Perennis can help you because Philosophia Perennis help you to understand the ultimate. Yeah? And this understanding of the ultimate is not religion as you know it. The many religions, Swan said, these many religions do not interest him. He is more interested in what is in the core in all these religions. And the core of all these religions can only be known by someone who has who looks into these regions using the eye of his heart. Yep. All right. So and how did Chuan manage to justify for the subtlety of his ideas? Yeah? He actually based his ideas of the perennial philosophy on the basis of this esoteric and exoteric knowledge. He divided knowledge of the realities into two. First is esoteric and secondly exoteric. The esoteric refers to the inner, the knowledge that pertains to the inner, to the core of an entity. Yeah. Whereas exoteric is knowledge that limited to the forms, to the external aspect, or to the external of an entity. Yeah. And he believes that the only way to understand, to know the transcendent, the ultimate, the real with capital R, or Godhead, the way this is known in the Christian tradition, is by means of the esoteric knowledge. If you use exoteric means, you will not be able to arrive uh, at the ultimate. So this is how he projected the importance of perennial philosophy and the means towards achieving the knowledge in perennial philosophy that is true esotericism. So you see, transcendent unity of religions, according to Schwann, is to go beyond our esoteric knowledge and to be more committed to our internal, our inward and spiritual way of knowing the ultimate. And this is possible because this inward and spiritual unity remains at the metaphysical sense, not in the physical sense. It remains in the heart of all religions in metaphysical sense. So now what we know about religions uh, only from the outside, and therefore we look at religions as different from one to another. We fail to grasp the inner aspect that binds a religion together, that unite the religion together. Okay, going back to this exoteric and esoteric. So he refers to the esoteric knowledge as knowledge that corresponds to the forms of an entity, of an object. And in our context of discussion, it's religion. So what are the examples of esoteric knowledge? I would say, um, you know, law of religion, yeah, doctrines of religion, um, the rituals, yeah, the rituals, the ethical system. These are the exoteric. These are the aspects of religions that can be attained by means of esoteric knowledge. Yeah, and is it the reason why Muslims cannot understand Trinitarian doctrine is because we interpret Trinitarian doctrine by means of exoterism. You know, we are very much bothered by the idea of three in one in three, and the debates on the relationship between these and among these three hypostases or three entities. Whereas he said that, as a matter of fact, Trinitarianism is very can only be attained by means of esoteric knowledge. Yeah. So it is not that Sean rejected exoterism altogether, except that he thought that man normally, or philosophers or scholars who normally too much carried away with exotericism and fail to acknowledge the strength, the ability, the credibility of the esoteric knowledge. Okay, so what is esoteric knowledge? Yeah? Esoteric knowledge is the knowledge that proceeds from intellect, from the intellect. Yeah, and this intellect is found not only in man but also in any being, anything that consists the nature. Yeah. Um. Nevertheless, not everybody, especially human being, is capable of noticing or acknowledging or recognizing this esoteric knowledge. Yeah? He believes so much that only some spiritual elite is able to acknowledge, to recognize the strength of this, uh, intellect in our self. So let's listen to what he says about esotericism.
If you had to boil your philosophy down to a few elements and you wanted to recommend to people ways of following it, philosophy, what would you say?
This first, this discernment between the absolute and the relative. Discernment between Atman, reality and illusion. So, and then prayer. Because if you believe, if you understand what is essential and what is absolute, you want to assimilate it. Otherwise, you is difficult. And in order to assimilate the truth of the absolute, you must pray. There are three kinds of prayer. First, canonical prayer. In Christianity, it's God. And then free personal prayer, like the Psalms in the Bible, David Psalms. Is personal prayer, talk with God. And third is prayer of the heart, essential prayer, which is an act of contemplation, innermost self. This is esotericism. I'm interested in this. And I say to people, you must pray, always pray. You must have at least one canonical prayer every day. And then you must talk to God. But you must always pray, like St. Paul said in an epistle, always pray. And this is prayer of the heart. The Eastern Church knows this practice very well. The Jesus prayer, Japa Yoga. The third thing is intrinsic morality, beauty of the soul, nobility, humility, which means objectivity towards oneself, charity, which is objectivity towards the neighbor, domination of oneself, generosity, this is beauty of the soul, this is intrinsic morality. Fourth dimension is beauty of forms, of surroundings, of dresses, of comportment. That's all.
So, all right, so that's about it. Let's go very quickly because we still have some slides, and then we are going to discuss further in our meeting, inshallah. All right, so let me see what it says here. So, of course, esoteric knowledge is the highest knowledge, and you cannot attain esoteric knowledge without exoteric knowledge. Yeah. So this is what one said, that he's not rejecting exoteric knowledge, but he does not agree with the way exotericism projected esoteric knowledge as the only way to arrive at knowledge. Yeah. So he said it is important to have exoteric knowledge, but then and if you have exoteric knowledge, you can also attain the esoteric knowledge. Yeah? Which means that he did not say that esoteric knowledge is not useful. It is useful. Yeah. Um. Okay, I will skip this one. Yeah. So again, I would like to stress that within the Transcendent Unity of Religion schools, they are looking forward to look into, to search for unity of religions at the level of inward, yeah, at the level of core or essence, rather than at the level of forms or the outlooks of religion. Therefore, Schwann said that there can be polite conversation and diplomatic harmony, but not unity. Yeah, and hence this justifies the idea of coexistence. Yeah. Um. Okay, let me skip this because I want to go to uh, esotericism and mysticism. For if you um able to to grasp from the very earlier when I started talking about inwardness, the core, the essence, and spiritualism, you would be able to relate all these terms to mysticism, because the science that speak a lot of these terms is mysticism. Esotericism and mysticism is uh, is inseparable. Yeah, they are depending on each other. Yeah, so mysticism uh, prosper because of mysticism, can be advanced because of there is esotericism, the recognition of the inner or the spiritual way of knowing things. Yeah, and the reliance towards it. And according to Schwann, mysticism is the science, secret science that is prevalent in 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 the experience of Sufis, of mystics, of Gnostics, of ascetics. It is prevalent throughout the time. All right. So only mysticism, according to Schwann, that is able to understand this inner and inward interpretation of religion. Yeah. And therefore he said that esotericism is actually the one universal character in every religion, as a matter of fact, in every man, yeah, which is the intellect. And the intellect is able to recognize this universal character in every religion. And only mysticism is capable of recognizing this. Why? We will see how this is recognized by mystics from different religions and traditions. Okay, for example, Sean likes to cite from Muslim Sufis. For example, this one is from Ibn Arabi in Tarjuman al-Ashwaq. What this the poem said that my heart has become capable of every form. It is a pasture for gazelles and a convent for Christian monks and a temple for idols and the pilgrims Kaaba and the tables of Torah and the book of the Quran. I follow the religion of love. Whatever my love's camels take, that is my religion and faith. And Fusus al-Hikam of Ibn Arabi also has similar projection of this uh, inner unity or unity of religion. Yeah? For example, he said, do not attach yourself to a particular creed exclusively so that you may disbelieve all the rest, so on and so forth. And then he said, Ibn Arabi quoted from the Quran, فَأَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. All right. Uh, Again, in Futuhat al-Makkiyah, Ibn Arabi said that Every observer of God is under the controlling property of one of God's name, one of God's names. That name discloses itself to him and gives to him a specific belief through its self-disclosure. So he's talking about self-disclosure that is able to identify God through a specific belief. Okay. This is also from Ibn Arabi in Al-Futuhat Al-Makkiyah. As you can see, the voluminous, all this contains poems of Ibn Arabi, his words on various issues. Yeah. So the revealed religions are diverse only because of the diversity of the divine relationship. You can read this on your own later, but these are among the poems frequently cited by the school of transcendentalists as well as pluralists. And this is Masnawi of Jalaluddin Arumi. You can see also, voluminous, and this is the citation of Al-Masnawi. And then Arumi also have been claimed to have said this in one of his poems. See, though the ways are various, the goal is one. Do you not see that there are many routes to the Kaaba, so on and so forth. And in another instance, he said, I'm not from the east or the west. I'm not Christian or Jew or Muslim. I'm not Hindu, Buddhist, Sufi or Zen. Right? And then in another section in Masnawi, he said, if you assemble at one place 10 earthen lamps, each in form and shape could be different from the others, they could be counted as 10, but if you concentrate on the light shed by them, it is one of the same. So this is a famous poem cited by the pluralists, and they said, by means of this very famous phrase, what is it called? The lamps are different, the light is the same, it comes from beyond. All right. Now, interestingly, mysticism is also the science that talk about wahdatul wujud, and this idea of wahdatul wujud matches with unity of religion, the concept of transcendent unity of religion. I know that most of you have learned about wahdatul wujud, even though you may not be the one practicing this belief, wahdatul wujud. But basically, the idea of wahdatul wujud believes that God is in everything. And God is in everything. He become emancipated in everything. You see, in its most extreme interpretation, the school of wahdatul wujud believe that this, divine God, they call it necessary being, one necessary being, wajibul wujud, is in the manifestation of the the manifestation of the outward radiance of him. So basically what we see around us in this nature is the manifestation of him. The manifestation of him, including ourselves. And the only way for us to recognize it is by our innocence, of which God or the divine reveals himself. This is called tajalli, discloses himself to all of us. So so it is quite interesting that ultimately transcendent unity of religions fall into this trick of immanence. God is transcendent, he is sacred, but is also manifested in the nature. All the nature is the manifestations of him, and they fall into this understanding of immanence. I mean, an extreme belief in this will fall into the idea of immanence, that God is in everything. God is in everything. And as a matter of fact, wahdatul wujud risk the idea um, of immanence of God. In the system of belief, if you study paintism, paintism is one good example of the concept that appreciates the idea of immanent God. That God is immanent, God is in the nature in comparison to the idea of God who is transcendent, that he is far and above the nature. All right. So you see, an extreme interpretation of transcendent unity of religion can result someone to fall into paintism, into the idea of God as immanent. What is the idea of God is immanent? That he embraces or he is embedded in the nature, that he is in every aspect in the nature. He is in man. Yeah. All right. And the transcendent school believe that, this type of knowledge towards God as transcendent, as immanent, and the idea of tajalli is not the science that is capable of attaining it, by the public. As a matter of fact, it is a science that can only be understood by a Sufis, a Gnostics, a mystics. Yeah? So that's how mysticism and transcendent unity of religion and perennial philosophy and sacred science, is very much interrelated. Okay. All right. So I think that's about it. And I think in our discussion, we're going to discuss about the role of Syed Hussein Nasr later on how this idea of transcendent unity of religion and perennial philosophy influence him, inshallah. So we are going to discuss this in our consultation class, inshallah, later. Thank you so much, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.